Realtors abide by a code of ethics. This is Article 9 in action. Beth, a first-time homebuyer, knew nothing about the home buying process, except that she wanted to buy a home. But her realtor had the expertise to make sure Beth understood every document, even giving her copies to review with her lawyer so Beth could close on her first home with confidence. Complicated things explained in simple terms. The difference between an agent and a realtor is real. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors. That's who we are.
Hey, it's Christine from Storyworthy. Today on the show, comedian Gary Robinson talks about meeting his heroes.
My friend Leo and I would sneak into these premieres. I can't reveal our techniques because it would get the whole premiere industry into havoc and complete disarray. Should I reveal this? Okay, there's always a will call list for these premieres. And we would go up and then drop a name that we knew would be on the will call list. But so we snuck into the premieres for Terminator 2 and True Lies and all these different movies. We snuck in very early, so we had to loiter and play video games and hang out and make it look like we're part of like an Entertainment Tonight crew or something like that, so we wouldn't get kicked out.
Today on the show, comedian Gary Robinson talks about meeting his heroes. Stay close.
Hey, my name is Gary Robinson, and you're listening to Storyworthy.
Welcome to Storyworthy. My name is Christine Blackburn, and I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, California. Whether you're a longtime fan of the show of over 11 years now, that's right, this is my 11-year anniversary, or you're a new listener, welcome to Storyworthy. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed the show last week with comedian Chris Gethard. Chris Gethard told this story that it was so tense. The way he told it was so intimate. Basically, he went out to get a Christmas tree in New York City with his wife and newborn, and they had the tree delivered. And when the tree was delivered, he was the only one in the apartment with the baby. And this man turned into be like a psycho. And they're in the apartment, and there's like a standoff. And the baby monitor's going off because the baby's crying, and the guy is holding a knife. And let me just tell you, man, as soon as Chris was done, I was like, this has to be a play. This has to be a two-man play, because it was so tense. And it was one of those, what would you do? And he actually named the story the day I learned I could kill a man. And I could see that. Hey, Gary Robinson, do you have children?
No.
Okay. Maybe because you don't have children, you wouldn't have the feeling that I had. But nonetheless, it's a tremendous story to listen to. So go back, you guys, listen to Chris Gethard talking about how he learned he could kill a man. It's awesome. It's just a great story. But not today. Not today. I'm here today with another comedian, Gary Robinson, and he brings forth the topic, meeting my heroes. And this is a great topic, first of all. I can't believe in 11 years I haven't heard this topic.
Well, first of all, I got to follow Chris, who's a killer on stage and apparently almost a killer in real life now, too. It's ironic that he has my exact same story, too. So I'll tell a different story. I'll talk about heroes.
Yeah, right. Oh, you're so funny. Well, but when you think about meeting your heroes, like, I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Where are you from, Gary?
I grew up in the mean streets of La Jolla.
Oh, that's right. I did read that. You're from La Jolla, California. You're the one.
It was tough.
Tell me, seriously, let's talk about that for just a second. What's it like to grow up in La Jolla? Like, do you automatically, surf? Or do you automatically go to the beach constantly?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right by the beach. People would, I went to La Jolla High, and people would go during lunch to surf, 3 blocks away from the school. Wow. So it was nice. The weather was perfect. You'd go to the beach all the time and hang out, and it was just a nice upbringing.
Do your parents still have a house there?
No, they followed me up here.
To LA.
Yeah, they wouldn't let me get away, apparently. So they moved up here, too.
How many brothers and sisters?
One brother.
There's one brother, I see. I just think, yeah, It's just idyllic living down there in terms of like the streets. All the streets are very clean and all the houses are maintained. It's very crowded. It's dense, isn't it?
Not too bad. I mean, not when I was there. But I mean, It's a great place to grow up and retire, but it's very slow if you're doing some kind of work in entertainment or comedy or whatever. I mean, they have the Comedy Store down there, but for most stuff, it's kind of slow. But when you drive down there, you feel like you're going down. You're going into slow motion. Like I feel like I'm slowing down as soon as I drive down there.
Yeah, it's such a great place. Oh, I love La Jolla. It does seem very touristy, of course.
Yeah.
And it's extremely hard to park.
Oh, yeah.
I always look at that. There's a tennis club down there that was like right off the beach or right on the beach, this huge tennis club. And I always thought, holy shit, that would be cool.
Yep, you can play tennis and go surfing. Same day.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good world down there. And here you are in LA. So today you bring forth the topic, meeting your heroes. And, so for you, maybe in La Jolla, maybe you saw more stars around than I possibly would have in Pittsburgh. But for me, it was always about like what concert was coming up. And then you would look forward to that concert for like 6 months because that's all there was to do, And so when you would see concerts, like I remember seeing the Smashing Pumpkins and Peter Gabriel, and you would see these people, and then that would be like, oh shit, that's really Peter Gabriel, like right there. But of course, I never met him. Now, one person I did meet, you're going to laugh, was at the Star Lake Amphitheater in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Let me take you back to 1987, where I met, it was 1991, like it makes a difference. I met backstage Dan Fogelberg. Thank you.
Cool.
You don't seem impressed.
Who's he? No, just kidding. Yeah, no, I mean,
I was a huge Fogelberg fan. I can't help it. And, in the 70s, it was all those singer-songwriter, long hair, and Dan Fogelberg, man, he did it for me.
Yeah. I went to see Billy Joel. That was my first concert with my parents. But here's the weird thing. I was never into live music or even live comedy back then growing up. And that's one reason I love doing video producing, because you could always perfect everything. Like I always like to hear the recordings. I want to hear what the final product they were working towards was. So I didn't want to hear them live mess up a word or play something off key or something like that. So I was never into live performance growing up for a long time.
That's so interesting. So you would prefer a straight album rather than an album live? Yeah.
Because I want to hear how they crafted it, how they worked at it for so long, because sometimes they work on songs for months or, days or months. So I always like to hear the final product of what people were really aiming at to perfect, kind of like a movie or a TV program.
Yeah, but then you have produced a lot of different comedy specials like Jimmy Shin Walk of Shame and the other girl I'm thinking of that you worked with, Sarah Halstead.
Yeah.
And so when they do these specials, of course, they're not perfect. And you're the producer guy. So what are you saying? I mean, do you edit as well then?
Yeah, of course. You edit, you can tweak things a little bit here and there. But let me say that there was a switch to live performances too. Like at a certain part in my life, I started to like live performances. And I don't know, I'm trying to remember when that was. When I felt like, okay, I don't need to focus so much on the craft of perfecting the audio recording or video. And there's some beauty to live performances and mistakes and the live energy you get to a crowd. So that probably happened when I started performing stand-up 8 years ago. Or maybe a little before then. I think I started wanting to go to concerts to have the live experiences of the bands too. Of the music.
Well, yeah, because especially comedy, it changes every night. Even if you say the same joke, it changes, right? Oh,
definitely. Different crowds, different vibes in the room, different rooms. Everything has an effect on it, and that's a part of the fun of it. We don't know what's going to happen. That's the danger of live comedy, is every performance is different, and there's a beauty.
And so you're not that same perfectionist then anymore?
No, I think that went out the window. As soon as you start doing live performance, you realize you can't be so hung up on doing everything perfect, because the beauty is in the flaws. The beauty is in the variations and all the different things that can happen.
Yeah. And that's really true in life, whether you're cooking something or redesigning something or painting something or whatever. Like, it's not going to be perfect. My sister calls it wabi-sabi. Is that right?
I don't know. I haven't heard that term.
There's a term that you don't want to make it perfect. Is it called wabi-sabi? I can't remember. But yeah, I can't remember. But the point is like, it's okay if things are flawed. It's good enough. And it also shows like part of who you are, and it makes things unique. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just an excuse. I'm not sure. So then, okay, so that was Dan Fogelberg. I know. Very exciting. When I moved to LA, I started meeting a lot more celebrities, obviously, and stars, or at least just seeing people. And about, I'd say 10 years ago now, I met somebody, no, maybe it was 6 years ago, I met Larry King. And he had always been somebody I'd really looked up to because I love his style of interviewing. I love how he's naturally curious. He reminds me of my dad, and he's just like a damn good guy. He always seemed like a good guy to me. So I finally met him. And it was great. He lived up to everything I wanted him to be. And I even went to his house. Wow. He did Storyworthy 3 times. He did Story Smash for me at the Improv. And he was my hero. He paid off. I love Larry King. So that was a good experience. But, of course, now I'm going to say there's also been bad experiences.
Oh, yeah. When you elevate people before you meet them to a certain level, because you have expectations of how successful they are, how great they are at their craft, and then that's inevitably going to be disappointing or maybe inspiring if you meet them. Like you might be impressed by them after you meet them.
Well, it's so funny because when people, when you get to the level of celebrity, it's just a different place, and people have. They'll tell stories like, one time I met Cher 30 years ago and I said hello and she was such a bitch, she kept walking. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Okay, first of all, you ran into her in a hallway and who knows if she heard you and where was she going. So it's terrible that for 30 years you've been saying Cher's a bitch. I mean, get over it.
Yeah.
I mean, how malicious are it depends. It just depends. I've met other people who right away say something sexually inappropriate. That's not uncommon. And then automatically I don't like that person.
Yeah. Well, if you meet somebody at the worst time during the day, they're not going to be in a good mood. So inevitably, if that's the time that you're going to meet them, something might not go too well.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense. Yeah. I try so hard to put my best face forward no matter who I meet, because especially in LA, you don't know who you're talking to.
Definitely. No, careers go up and down like roller coasters at every level. And I've seen this from people I know that have been successful actors, and then maybe they have a bad year and all of a sudden, the career's going south pretty quickly. They pick a few of the wrong movies to do.
Or why are people judged anyway on one accomplishment? Like let's say somebody was in The Sopranos, right? So Christopher Moltisanti. No, but the actor's name, Michael Imperioli. Michael Imperioli, I'm sure he is known, obviously, for The Sopranos, but why can't he be something else? It seems like this is the only place in the world where the entertainment industry, where we mark somebody's accomplishment and then that seems to be the end of it. Like, why can't they go on? Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think people are defined by projects or things they're involved in that resonate with people. So, in other words, like Tom Arnold, for instance, outstanding actor, but his biggest hit by far is True Lies. I mean, as far as the title he's known for, he's done probably, dozens or maybe 100 other films, but people will remember the ones that really resonated or the ones that were big hits or seen by a lot of people.
Well, see, when I think of Tom Arnold, I just think of Roseanne. Yeah. I don't even think of his movies.
Way back.
No, I'm just saying I go right to his ex-wife.
Yeah, and so now you're defining him based on his ex-wife. So that fits into like how there's certain defining moments in our life that people will kind of go back to.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
in a perfect,
so true.
we keep on looking on the career that keeps going. Oh, he did this and he did this and he did this series, but we don't remember that. We remember the last big hit that we liked, or the big news that he was married to Roseanne.
Yeah. That's tough. I mean, people think celebrities have it made, or, your hero has it made. Whatever that hero is, maybe it's an astronaut or a runner or, whatever you admire. We still all take our pants off the same,
We do? No, I do it upside down. So
I happen to be one of those people that I get like a little bit obsessed with the royal family. Not all the time, but I tend to go down a rabbit hole about the royal family. And part of it is because they're just people.
Yeah. I had a whole bit on that.
But they're eating dinner in castles. I mean, so it's just, it's a weird thing, But then when you saw like Lady Di and all her personal problems, that's what made her so special. She made the royal family accessible.
Yeah. Well, people feel like they know them, but they feel like they're connected to royalty in a weird way by liking this family.
Exactly. Well,
I mean, this is something that women love. I mean, I don't think guys care a lot about the royal family as much, but it's entertainment. But women, I think there's a fantasy of marrying a prince or living being a queen or I had a whole bit on this. It's pretty bad, but where I said, hey, you're not gonna marry a king. You might go to Burger King. You're not be a queen, but you might be able to eat at Dairy Queen. There's people, but they want to live the dream of, being royalty. And that's the amazing thing about Meghan Markle, being an American who becomes a queen, a princess. So, I mean, it's an amazing story, really.
Oh, yeah. No, hers is an amazing story. But even so, like, look at Lady Diana. People thought she had it all, and she was terribly depressed, terribly lonely, had no friends, had nobody around her. I mean, she would be like roller skating through Windsor Castle because there was just nothing else to do, So she didn't have it made. I mean, I'm just saying, like, what a ridiculous fantasy, because that just shows us there is no fantasy there.
That might be the best example of that material objects and material wealth does not bring you happiness. Because you could get everything you want in the world, but if you're not happy internally, then it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Don't I know it, Gary Robinson? Well, listen, I'm excited to hear your story. And you have worked extensively in Los Angeles, I guess you would say in Hollywood. And it's funny because now I guess you've always been a comedian in a way, but now you're in front of the camera, I guess I would say, like you're the one on stage. And in the past, you've done so much producing and editing, and you've produced thousands of nationally broadcast promos. So when I say the word, you've produced thousands of nationally broadcast promos for shows like Married with Children and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Blind Date, America's Funniest Home Videos, all those shows. So when you make those promos, you're talking about a tiny little piece about a minute long. Is that right? Or tell us.
Typically 30 seconds for those, but I've done a lot of trailers that might be a few minutes or so. But typically, short form advertising. Promos are... We'll do a set of promos, like a 30, 20, 15, 10, that kind of thing for syndicated promos. But really, they're like mini movie trailers for TV programs to promote upcoming TV episodes.
So when you would start making a promo, did they give you the entire, let's say it was for a sitcom, do they give you the 21-minute episode completed and then you pull from that?
Typically, maybe with the music gone, so that I could, make it with I could put in my own music and not have it mixed with the whatever music they're utilizing.
And do you write that music?
Split track, we call it.
Yeah. Do you write that music?
No, back then we would have kind of buyout tracks that we could use, or every once in a while we'd have a composer compose music if we had some money for that. It kind of varied. It evolved. It evolved over the years, kind of like the whole style of movie trailers evolved. Promos have evolved too. Like for, you probably remember the era of trailers where it was Don LaFontaine doing, in a world, that whole thing. That kind of, we've evolved away from that. Mm-hmm. And if you notice the trailers that happen now, they're not going to have an announcer for the most part. They're going to kind of tell the story using images and words and things. And so promos have evolved just like movie trailers have evolved.
And And what's the difference between a promo and a movie trailer? Just television to film?
Well, a movie trailer would be a few minutes, maybe a minute and a half to a couple minutes. A promo is typically 30 seconds.
How about when there's a movie trailer and they basically tell you the whole goddamn movie?
Yeah.
It's like, what do we do? Then why are we going?
They are trying to throw in the kitchen sink and hoping that will entice you to see the whole thing. But there's a lot of market testing is why they do that. Things have evolved, and that's one of the evolutions of movie trailers, where now they give away the whole story, so you see the whole thing, and there's a kind of a formula to it. But they're really trying to entice you, obviously, to see the whole 90-minute or hour and a half movie based on this, 90-second trailer.
So you finish it the way you see fit, and then you submit it to...
It would typically go through the company I'm working for, and they would send it to the studios, and the studios would approve it.
Or not approve it.
Or not approve it. That's kind of rare. Every once in a while, they'll have notes. Yeah. I mean, executives need to validate their existence. So they love giving a note here and there.
So do you critique harshly promos and trailers you haven't made, or you don't even pay attention anymore? No, I definitely, when you're an editor or a producer, you're definitely hyper aware of things going on. So when I'm watching TV, it might be at a different level than somebody who's just kind of sitting back looking at, like I'm looking at the editing, I'm listening to the music, I'm seeing what effects they're using. So I think I'm very aware of what's going on whenever I'm seeing stuff on TV. And yeah, no, I am too. I see a lot. I see more than I want to see. And my daughter, because, we're watching TV together now, she sees things. And she's going into high school and she's studying cinematography, which is very cool. So she definitely sees things. And she saw something the other night that was so funny. It was on the Goldbergs, and they were in a college dorm. And the posters on the wall were attached with pins, but the wall looked like cement block. Like dorm room cement block. Right. And my daughter said, wait a minute, those pins couldn't go into cement block. Isn't that great? I love it. I love how now she has that same eye. Yeah, no, it's great. It just makes you hyper aware of things. And by the way, speaking of evolution, I mean, cinematography has really evolved too, because now I have 3 35mm motion picture cameras. I have an Arri 2B, an Arri BL2, an Arri BL4. And, now we're obviously going to video with the ArriFlex Alexas and the Reds and all that stuff. But there's something amazing about shooting on film, because there's a permanence to it, number one. And the quality is just a different level. Like, I mean, they're getting to it right now with these video cameras, but these cinema cameras. But film has a quality to it that's very hard to replicate. And that's why a lot of the biggest movies, even as of a few years ago, are still shot on film. Sure. Like the last Star Wars was shot on film. Like Christopher Nolan always shoots on film with like, I think even 75mm or something film. Doesn't Tarantino shoot on film? Yeah, always. Spielberg, always film for the most part. Martin Scorsese, almost always film. I mean, he did a lot of effects where he might have to do some other stuff. But Tarantino will always do it on film, as far as I know. Yeah, I think that's so interesting. And, part of it seems to me it's like the drum machine versus the real drums. Like, how perfect do you want to be? And do you want to hear any personality coming through? Any nuances that you don't catch if it's perfect. Right. Yeah, there's something to the analog world that is hard to replicate. There's plugins that do it, but it's just not. I don't know. It's not there yet. Yeah, I hear you. I'm very sensitive to sound because obviously what I do for a living, and when I hear especially loud sounds or sharp sounds, I get so jarred. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like I have to wear not necessarily like hearing aids, but not hearing aids, but like cotton in my ears, just because any loudness I'm not a fan of. Well, that's a good sign. It's better than the alternative of not being able to hear. So yeah, good point. I'd rather be able to hear more. But the other thing, by the way, I just want to point out about film that's amazing. It's a 100-year archive. Mm-hmm. You have a physical representation of what you filmed, where we are in an age of data loss where everything's on data that's going to disappear for the most part. Like, how many of your friends have lost a hard drive and lost a ton of photos? Like, I've had it happen to like 3 friends. When you do something film, you have a physical representation of the image. And same with
filming with, film in a motion picture camera. You have a physical representation.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I hear what you're saying, but I mean, if you shoot a film on a digital camera and then you save it on multiple drives or in the cloud, then you're not going to lose it.
Okay, but what happens in 100 years when we can't read it with anything?
Gary, we're going to be dead.
No, I'm going to live on forever. There's some DNA stuff we're working on. No, just kidding. But no, but that's what I mean. Is it in the future, like they'll be able to take the celluloid, retransfer it, and you have a physical representation of a film that can last for 100 years. You're creating a physical representation of an image or whatever, or a film that can be seen in 100 years probably. When all the stuff we're filming now will be lost for the most part, unless they find a way of storing it that everybody can read it in the future.
Well, I mean, but if you store film, you have to have that like in a certain temperature and everything. You just can't store film either. I mean, it'll disintegrate. It'll go away. Yeah,
I mean, if it's too hot, I mean, it doesn't have to be like room temperature is okay for a lot of stuff. But I mean, I'm just saying that data is lost very easily when it's on a hard drive or other medium. I mean, we've gone through so many different formats. I have videotapes that are high 8, VHS, all kinds of different formats that you can't read now.
Yeah.
But film, at least you can retransfer to whatever comes along.
I see.
So
we're
talking about film archiving.
On all the studio lots, they have vaults full of old films.
Yeah.
To preserve them.
And one went on fire in Warner Brothers several years ago.
Oh, really?
One caught fire. Yeah.
Do you know what they lost?
No, but probably some stuff they won't get back.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Well, listen, before we get over to Gary's story, I did want to remind you guys that Storyworthy is now with Podcast One, and I'm really excited about that. So head over to podcastone.com and you can listen to Storyworthy there, subscribe and all that other stuff. Or you can just listen where you've always been listening. And maybe you don't care about Podcast One, but I do. So you like me, I like Podcast One. I'm just letting you know. I'm just telling you. And listen, you guys, we are bringing Story Smash back. Story Smash, the storytelling game show, is going to be back live at the Improv in August. I don't have the date yet, but when I do, you will know. And you can always go over to storysmashshow.com to get the current information. And we are at Flappers live the third Sunday of every month. Next show, July 18th. Blaine Capatch is going to be there. How about that? Jimmy Shin is going to be there. You know him, Gary.
Of course. Yeah, outstanding comedian. Great guy.
He sure is. He's an outstanding comedian, and he's a damn nice guy, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I met you, at Jimmy Shin's show.
Yep.
I like that he calls his shows shindigs. That's funny, right?
Yeah.
I think it's very funny. Same. Anyway, you guys, check out storyworthypodcast.com for all the latest information on everything going on. And follow me, of course, at Storyworthy on all the socials. You know that. All right, you guys, he's here right now, Gary Robinson. You've heard him talking. He is an Emmy nominee and an award-winning writer, director, producer, and editor. And he has worked with huge clients like CBS and Sony and Martin Scorsese. You've also produced thousands of nationally broadcast promos, like I was saying, and then also film trailers. You've also worked with you've done so much interesting stuff. You've shot interviews with Jim Carrey, Miley Cyrus, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Paris Hilton. So obviously you have been meeting heroes.
It's a small world.
Yeah. Well, I guess if you live in LA and you're talented like you are.
I hope so. But a lot of the story is going to deal with like just randomly meeting people too. It's a very bizarre world we're in where we can run into these people that we've idolized for years.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm excited to hear it. And you have also produced quite a few comedy specials, like I mentioned, Jimmy Shin's Walk of Fame and Sarah Halstead's RVs.
It's a walk of shame. But
what did I say?
A walk of fame.
Oh, yeah.
That's what happens living in Hollywood for too long.
Yeah, right. You've also produced several comedy specials, like I mentioned. And hey, who knows? Maybe I'll have you do my comedy special, Gary Robinson.
All right.
You can find Gary over on Twitter at Sharp Cut and also at his website, Sharp Cut Comedy. And you're also at Sharp Cut Productions. So that's you. You're Sharp Cut.
Basically. And you know where that comes from?
Where?
when you deliver a cut to a client, it's called a rough cut. And I thought, oh, I'll take the opposite, sharp cut.
Gary, that's really funny. No, I didn't have that in my head. I like it. I was thinking Final Cut.
Oh, that's the Mac editing system.
Right.
But that's
of course.
the Final Cut. Sharp cut is more, I don't know. I guess I made up that term. So
Sharpcutcomedy.com. That's where you can find them. All right, you guys, wherever you are, put your hands together for the very talented Gary Robinson.
Oh, thanks a lot. So I just get right into this, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, so I grew up in La Jolla, and we talked about that a little earlier. And when I was a little kid, I would go home every day, and this was after like Star Wars. I had seen Star Wars in the movie theaters and was blown away. And so many people my age are totally inspired by Star Wars because it created this totally different universe, and a lot of filmmakers came from that era of wanting to kind of emulate that kind of feeling that Star Wars brought. So for probably a year, I would go home from La Jolla High or from grade school, and my brother and I would put on a VHS of Star Wars or Raiders of the Lost Ark. Lucasfilm. Lucas wrote that along with Spielberg, and he directed Star Wars and wrote Star Wars. And so, literally, I've probably seen Star Wars 100 times. Raiders probably, the same. Just an enormous amount of times, right? So that kind of made me want to be a film director, and maybe inspired me to want to move up to Hollywood to work in the entertainment industry. And while I was at UCSD, a really nice guy, a friend of my parents named Marty Colby, was over one day, and he saw some of the work I was doing at UCSD, and he went out of his way to write a letter to the president of what was going to be Quincy Jones Entertainment. And so I got an internship at Quincy Jones Entertainment when they were starting at Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And so that was Quincy Jones Company. And obviously I was a big Michael Jackson fan too. So I'm like, oh, wow, this is amazing. Then I'm going to be able to intern at Quincy Jones Entertainment. So I get there, and one of the first things I do, I get there like really when they're just starting the company up, and they're going to have the big launch party to launch the company, right? And they're funded by Warner Brothers and everything. And so as an intern, I'm going to help them a little bit, with the party. So I'm working at the office, taking some calls from people who are RSVPing, and I get this call, and so I pick up the phone. This guy goes, "This is Harrison Ford. I'm RSVPing for me and Melissa." And I had an out of body experience.
Oh my God.
Like, I don't know if you've ever had one of those, like, this is not happening. Like I've seen this guy literally probably 200 times, like in the movie theater and at home. And now I'm talking to him. Like, it was a complete out of body experience. And I think I said, yeah. Like, I was just completely, I didn't know what to say. And so he said, "Okay, great, I'll be there." And so I hung up, and I couldn't believe I just talked to Harrison Ford, like one of my idol film actors of all time. And so I wrote down that he'll be at the event. And and I didn't get any more crazy calls, but we had this big blast off party at the Roxbury on Sunset. The Roxbury now is a Pink Taco, so it's really gone down in acclaim a little bit, But so we had this big party, and at the party was Steven Spielberg. And I didn't see him at the party. I know he was there because there's an article with a photo with him. And I was standing at the party, and I met Quincy Jones briefly, who I was amazed to meet just because he's an incredible producer. And I remember I'm standing on the dance floor, and there's this guy hovering over me, and I look up, and I'm not very tall if you don't see me. And I look up, and it's Clint Eastwood. And the funny thing is, it's like, he looks bigger on life on camera, but he's actually taller in person.
Yeah,
like it's kind of interesting.
6'3".
And
or 6'4".
Yeah, he's a tall guy, and I'm like 5'6". So he's a tall guy. I'm like literally looking up, and I'll never forget because I had to bend my neck to see who it was, And so that was a trip. And then Brooke Shields was there. I saw her walking around and stuff. And Henry Mancini I had met before. And it was funny because I knew that Hank Mancini was there. And I was so naive back then. I was like, 20 years old or something. I didn't know there's a difference between Hank and Henry. I didn't know they were the same. And so I ran into Henry Mancini. And I had him sign like an album like a year earlier or something. And I said, "Oh, I think I met your brother Hank."
Oh.
And he said, "Oh, really? Was he nice to you?" I met him at the ballet. He said, "Oh yeah." I said he was pretty cool. He was really nice. And then he took off. And then later I found out, oh wait, Hank is Henry. So I was a little naive back then. But the biggest thing for me back then was just talking to Harrison Ford on the phone, like this guy I'd seen a million times. And then it just kind of brings it all into reality. Like, we've seen these people on screen and now they're real people. And it was just, even though it was a brief experience, it was really kind of amazing. And then later I got the opportunity to help Jim Carrey out with some projects. And he was like one of my favorite comedy actors of all time. I mean, Dumb and Dumber is probably my favorite comedy movie. I mean, it's amazing. Like his performances are incredible. And he's just talking about, meeting people and them exceeding your expectations. His whole thing, like he just wants to make the world a better place. Like he's a really good person. I know he's been through a lot, but he's a very good person. So he really, one of the few people who have greatly exceeded my expectations as a person. And also back then, my friend Leo and I would sneak into these premieres. I can't reveal our techniques because it would get the whole premiere industry into havoc and complete disarray. But so we snuck into the premieres for Terminator 2 and True Lies and all these different movies. And like, it was funny, the Terminator 2 premiere, we snuck in very early, like while people were watching the movie. We were at the big area that they're having the after party. So we had to loiter and play video games and hang out and make it look like we're part of like an Entertainment Tonight crew or something like that. So we wouldn't get kicked out. But, and then, so I think we sat down with Whoopi Goldberg or something at one of those parties. And, so that was really amazing that we'd sneak into these premieres and meet all these people and stuff.
So tell us your secrets. Come on. Nobody here is going to sneak into a premiere. What did you do? You just hid in the bathroom?
No. All right. Well, I don't, should I reveal this? Okay, there's always a will call list for these premieres.
Right.
And we would go up and then drop a name that we knew would be on the will call list. and then we get in.
I don't understand. How did you see the name?
We would just know based on the crew or the cast or whatever. So we dropped kind of a lesser known name. Like one time we went to the the premiere of Desperado and we dropped a name and they let us in, and it was for one of the producers who they may have stopped the producer from getting in. I hope not, but I'm sorry, whatever your name is, producer of Desperado, if you didn't get into your own premiere because of us. But you probably did.
That is so funny. So basically you find the call sheet and you say that you're on the electric crew or that you're a driver.
We would find a higher up, like some kind of producer level.
Wow.
And then drop that name.
And then you go up and you'd say, Spielberg, Party of Two.
Yeah, we wouldn't be that obvious. It would be a producer that maybe brought in some of the financing or something.
Interesting.
But I was a kid, okay? I was getting into trouble back then. I learned my lesson. I wouldn't do that now. Kids, do not try that at home, okay? So, and then I had an opportunity to do some work for Martin Scorsese's a big idol of mine too. I mean, Goodfellas, a lot of great movies. And I had the opportunity to do some work for his foundation. So I did the logo for the World Cinema Project that he uses to bring attention to films around the world that a lot of people might not see. So I did some work for Martin Scorsese. And then but I didn't meet him directly, although I went to the premiere of Silence. And they had, Andrew Garfield and Liam Neeson there and all these people. And I saw him there and I was going to go up to him and say hi and said, "Hey, I did the logo for your World Cinema Project," but I couldn't get up to him. He was surrounded by people. So I hope to meet him one day, but it's just another weird thing of, work, getting to be connected to your idol in a small way. Like, so now when people put on these films, they see my logo that I created at the top of them. And some of these are theatrical and some of them are home video. And so it's just kind of an interesting thing that I'm oddly connected to Martin Scorsese in a tiny little way. And I did some other minor work for him too, but that was just a real honor to be able to do anything with such a master of film.
So when you worked with Martin Scorsese, What did you do exactly? You made a trailer for him?
I created a logo that they use at the start of these films for this World Cinema Project, which is,
I see.
He's a foundation that's dedicated to preserving film. Speaking of film, by the way, they are taking old negatives, they're restoring negatives, and then they're scanning them in 4K. So they're trying to preserve these films that would otherwise probably go away, that we'd never see. So that gets back to film. Why I like film too is because you're creating this archive of your film, where if you have something on your computer, like as you know, or a photo on a card, you're probably going to lose that data at some point. Yeah. But now we've got backups in the cloud. We've got alternative ways of storing stuff. But film and having a physical representation is really the best way to archive anything. Like if you print out a photo, you're going to have that photo forever. That's why we have, photo books that have photos that I've taken, 40 years ago or whatever. But now most of the stuff is on our hard drives and those hard drives are going to go. So you got to back them up and be careful with them.
Okay. So tell me more people that you've met. And by the way, how did you work with Jim Carrey? What did you do with him?
Oh, I just, I can't talk a whole lot about that, but he did the intro for the Foo Fighters at the MTV Movie Awards. And I helped him do a project where he's a brilliant guy. Like he came up with this idea of wearing a green suit, and then I kind of edited some images to project on it, and I had dogs humping. So that was kind of the joke. And so he went up and he's doing this announcement. I'm wearing the latest in chroma key and gamma technology or something, and then I have all these random images appearing on his coat, and then dogs start humping on it too. So
that's pretty funny.
But he's an amazing guy. Really, really impressive. Yeah. And then this is the most random thing and kind of one of the morals of the story. I was sitting with my friend Leo, who we snuck into a lot of the premieres back in the day. I was sitting at this champagne bakery in Beverly Hills, and I see George Lucas walking down the street, and he walked right by, and the moral of the story, like I didn't say anything to him. I was just blown away that he's walking by in Beverly Hills all by himself. Like this was, years and years ago. And I didn't say anything to him, but I think the moral of the story is be prepared to say something to your heroes when you run into them, because that might happen even when you least expect it.
Have something to say. Yeah.
Like, some kind of gratitude. I mean, I probably wouldn't even be up here if not for him. But I didn't really have any, I was young back then. I think I was probably 22 or 23 when I saw him, but I didn't have anything to say at the time. Like, he just walked by. I didn't want to stop him. You don't have to be that polite. Like, you can stop him and say something. He'd probably be honored to hear that you inspired his life, your life and career based on a hero of yours.
I mean, yeah, who wouldn't want to hear that, they've done great work and that you appreciate them?
Yeah. And then ultimately, hopefully you can be the hero to somebody else too and inspire them in one way or another. So that can trickle down.
And you have been doing a lot of comedy shows with guys like Tom Arnold and Jay Moore and Bill Burr. I mean, you're on stage with a lot of great comics.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. Like, because I always like being behind the camera. That's why I like to direct and edit and stuff. I'm not like a very outgoing person, apparently, which is why I didn't go up to Lucas. But so I never thought I'd be a performer. And really, I never liked stand-up comedy either. Like, I would drive by the Comedy Store when I first moved here and say, what, you're going to go in there and people are going to say stuff and make you laugh? That's ridiculous. Like, I was never into stand-up comedy. And then,
really?
And then I was managing a band, right? And then Jimmy Shin was doing stand-up, and we would go support him, and he would come support us. And I would go and say, oh, this is a lot of fun. It's very entertaining. I like that it's not recorded. There's a danger to it being live. And that was also, that was probably when I started liking live performance more too, because I was working with bands, and obviously we would be performing live. I mean, we'd perfect the recordings, but when we perform live, I would see the intricacies of the live performance that could make it fun and could bring another level to it. So that's probably when I started enjoying live performance more. But I never thought I'd do stand-up comedy. But then after my divorce, you're kind of up for trying everything. Like after divorce, like, oh, you want to go skydiving? Yeah, why not? My life's different. I'm not.
Depends on the divorce, but
yeah. I mean, it probably depends on the divorce, but I think you are more open to trying different things in your life because you realize your life might be going down a different path than you expected. Because a lot of us think we're going to have, a wife and 2 kids or whatever. And when that doesn't happen, then you think, well, I could try all kinds of different things. My life isn't defined by my family. So, so I was at the Belly Room at the Comedy Store, and I was sitting there with Jimmy after my divorce a little while. And I said out of the blue, I said, oh, I'd try that sometime. He said, okay, I'll get you up next month. so he got me booked, and I had been writing a lot of by the way, going back to promos are very brief movie trailers that a lot of times you have to you put punchlines into the trailer, into these promos to make them entertaining and funny. So I'd been writing comedy for a long time, but never performed any of it. So he got me up the next month at the Comedy Store. I was nervous as hell. My stomach was in knots the whole day before. And I did okay, but I think I could have done better. And then I kind of retooled the script and the set. And then I came back a month later and got better. And then for some reason, I just had one of these magic performances that I was like, I hit nonstop, like in the original room of the Comedy Store. And that's kind of when I got hooked. And that was like my 3rd time. So then I just kind of kept going with it. And that was 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So, so I guess that's probably when I learned to appreciate live performance and more stand-up and music.
It's interesting because guys like you often don't go, to the front, as it were. Like I have a friend who's a colorist. He colors film, which is also a new thing now that they color every frame of the film and to make it perfect.
You can use some AI to do that too. Computers are learning to color the skin by themselves. Amazing.
Amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. But anyway, he is the same kind of guy as you in terms of producing constantly and putting things out, but he'd never go on stage. No way. So you're unique.
Yeah, I'm just not. That's the weird thing. It's kind of I'm really not an outgoing person. Like I'm not going to go out of my way to go up to people and meet them for the most part. I'm not the life of the party. I'm not going to stand there like, hey, everybody gather around. Let me tell you a story or something. But if I've got something written that I think is very funny, I can go on stage and deliver it and make a lot of people laugh. And there's a real excitement to that. And it's something new.
No kidding. And you're unassuming. So nobody's threatened by you on stage. You just stand there and you talk, you get laughs. You're great on any lineup. You're great.
Well, the funny thing about that is that the act, and I'm sure how long have you been doing stand-up?
Well, my first set was in 1992.
Oh, my God. Wow.
Yeah. And that was after a divorce, by the way.
Oh, you're inspired by divorce, too.
Yeah, that got me moving. But I have taken like a 10-year break in there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I've done comedy a lot.
And the irony is you look like you were born in 92. So that's kind of cool.
Yes, that's exactly right.
I guess you're reborn. You're reborn in 92.
Nice. You're very nice.
But, the thing is, our acts evolve significantly, I think, over time. At least mine has. I know other people have had. Because when I first started doing it, I used to play off me looking kind of unassuming and not intimidating. And I would say the most shocking things I could come up with. So my whole act was based on shock value. But I had to dial that down because it would upset, it was made to upset people sometimes too. But so now, particularly over Zoom where everything's being recorded, I've rewritten a lot of my act so that it's more, let's say, not cancelable. It's nicer.
Yeah. And also, you can't rely on shock value because it'll fade. It's not going to sustain a comedy career. You have to get more truthful than shock value. Although Dice made his career after that and he did fine. Yeah,
he's evolved a little bit. I mean, I think he's gotten away from the limericks, although he'll bring them out once in a while. But we all have to. That's the fun thing about comedy is that if you have an offset, you can go home and rewrite something and write something totally different and then come up with something that might work better. I mean,
that's right.
And you keep evolving. I started doing crowd work a few years ago, maybe 4 years ago too. And, a lot of times we're kind of on this linear set and we're scared to go to the audience because that takes us off kilter. But going back to the live performance, the danger of it, that makes it more fun sometimes to see where the audience might take it.
Definitely.
You open yourself up to hecklers, but why not? Let's see what happens with that. Jamie
Wow.
Toomey, who I've worked on a lot of shows with, I think he loves that. He likes the audience interaction and kind of maybe going off the rails a little bit. And I don't know where it's going to go, but I'm going to see what happens.
Yeah. Well, you're very brave.
Thanks. Sometimes.
Hey, man, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, thank
This
you.
was really fun, talking about meeting your heroes, because it happens for sure. And at the end of the day, it turns out they're just people. Who knew?
Exactly.
Hey, listen, this has been so much fun, and I hope I get to work with you again. I'd love to.
Yeah, that'd be great. We will. I'm certain of it.
Again, you guys, find Gary over there on Twitter at SharpCut, and also find him at SharpCut Comedy and at SharpCut Productions. This has been so much fun. I really appreciate you coming on, Gary. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
All right, you guys, my name is Christine Blackburn, saying make it a story-worthy week.
Thanks for joining us on the Storyworthy Podcast. We'll be back next week with all new stories. Subscribe to Storyworthy on iTunes and visit the Storyworthy website at storyworthypodcast.com.
Parenting is hard, but being a kid can be even harder.
Like when I fell off my bike and thought my leg was gonna fall off?
Or like when I actually sprained my knee playing soccer and had to wear that clunky brace to prom and I couldn't dance with anybody. And it basically ruined
That's
my
why
entire
CHIP
senior
provides
year.
free or low-cost health coverage for all Pennsylvania kids, so you can be the best parent you can be.
I still think when I fell it was worse.
Oh my gosh, seriously?
Visit chipcoverspakids.com to learn more.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
Right now, you can get free carpet installation from the Home Depot. So while we're putting in your new carpet, you'll have more time to take care of the lawn. Get started on dinner. Or just lay down and relax on your new carpet after it's installed. Get your free carpet installation started with the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Minimum purchase of $4.99. Exclusions apply. U.S. only. See store for details.